We tend to think of bullying as just this universal, unfortunate part of growing up. But what if it's not? Today, we are diving deep into a massive study that talked to students all across 40 different countries, and honestly, the findings might completely change the way you see this problem. Let's get right into it. So, let's start with a number 202,056. That's how many students, we're talking 11, 13, and 15-year-olds, were part of this incredible study. I mean, the sheer scale of this is just mind-boggling, and it gives us this unprecedented look into the lives of young people all over the world. So you have to ask, right? When you listen to that many voices from so many different cultures and places, what story do they actually tell? What did this enormous survey really find out about bullying? Well, let me tell you, the answer is probably not what you're thinking. Here's the single biggest takeaway. The experience of bullying is not the same everywhere, not even close. What the study actually revealed was this incredibly diverse global picture. It shows that where you grow up has a huge impact on whether you're involved in bullying at all, either as a victim or as the one doing the bullying. And that brings us to our first major point. This global map of bullying is just incredibly varied. And we're not talking about small little differences here and there. We're talking about huge, dramatic night and day contrasts between countries. Just let that sink in for a second. A kid's chance of being involved in bullying can be 7 times higher in one country compared to another. That one fact just completely shatters the idea that bullying is somehow inevitable. Clearly, there's something else going on. And just look at this difference. Take boys, for example. In a country like Sweden, only about 8.6% report any involvement with bullying. But then you look at Lithuania, and that number just skyrockets to an incredible 45.2%. That isn't just a gap, that's a canyon. The researchers themselves put it pretty bluntly. They found a 5-fold difference for boys and an even bigger 7-fold difference for girls between the countries with the lowest and highest rates. It's just this powerful reminder that context is everything. And as you zoom in, you start to see these geographic patterns take shape. Rates are pretty consistently lower in places like Northwestern Europe, think Scandinavia, and much higher in some Eastern European countries. So what's going on? Well, the study points to a really fascinating clue. A lot of the countries with low rates have had national anti-bullying programs in place for a long time. This suggests these numbers aren't set in stone. They can absolutely be changed. Okay, so we've established that where you live is a huge deal. But what about who you are? The study also uncovered these incredibly consistent patterns when it comes to age and gender, and these patterns seem to hold up no matter which country you're looking at. First up, the gender divide. It was crystal clear. In every single one of the 40 countries, boys reported bullying other students more than girls did. That is a truly universal finding in this data. On the flip side, in most places, 29 out of the 40 countries, girls were more likely to report being the victims of bullying. Age plays a super interesting role here too. So as kids get older, from age 11 to 15, the experience of being a victim actually tends to decrease for both boys and girls. But for boys, the act of bullying other people tends to increase as they get older. Interestingly, for girls who bully, the pattern wasn't as clear-cut. It was a bit more of a mixed bag, varying a lot more from country to country. Okay, this next part is one of my favorites because it uses hard data to take a really common assumption and just flips it right on its head. The study took a deeper dive into the types of bullying that are happening, and what they found busts a major stereotype. We've all heard this one, right? It's the classic stereotype: boys are physical, pushing, shoving, while girls are more indirect, using social exclusion and rumors. Well, the researchers decided to put that idea to the test with a sub-study in 6 of the countries. And wow, just look at this. The results were not what anyone expected. Boys reported doing all 3 major forms of bullying more often than girls. Not just physical bullying, but also direct verbal bullying like name-calling, and the indirect, relational bullying, the very kind that we always associate with girls. So, to put it simply, the data just did not match the stereotype. This finding really forces us to rethink our assumptions. It seems like boys aren't just specialists in one type of aggression. According to this data, they're more like generalists, using whatever form of bullying works. All right, so we've seen where bullying happens, who it involves, and what types are out there. But what's the big takeaway from all of this? What's the lesson we can learn from looking across all these borders? This right here is the most powerful and honestly the most hopeful message of the entire study. The fact that bullying rates are so wildly different proves that high levels of bullying are not inevitable. It isn't just kids being kids. These differences strongly suggest that things like national policies, cultural attitudes, and what we do in schools can create environments where bullying is just way less common. And that leaves us with this one final and really important question. This study shows us, with data, that some places have figured out how to have dramatically lower rates of bullying than others. So it's not some unsolvable mystery. The real challenge for all of us now is to ask, if some countries have already found a way forward, what can the rest of the world learn from them?